Hello, everybody. Welcome to Work Taste Podcast. I'm Ryan Rex here today with Joshua Hensley, and maybe you've heard of him, maybe you haven't. He's the ever comparable, the ever awesome Andrew Wells. Thank you for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me.
Josh, how are you doing today?
I am doing lovely, man. Thanks for inviting me to this. This was awesome.
I'm pretty sure this wouldn't be happening without you, Josh. So I'm appreciative as well. I think this little communicative circle kind of came full force, and now we have Andrew here. Little backstory. Me and Andrew have a small history because we're going to be talking about the architect today. And before the architect dropped, there's this little thing called 1,000 Decent Memes, which involved making like tons of memes for album information on the architect. And now what is it, 3 years later, we're gonna get some album information on the architect.
Yep, we're
Fun
good.
time, man. Fun time.
We're on time, man. We're on time. We're Andrew's gonna be talking about all kinds of awesome stuff with us here today. But I guess first and foremost, how you doing today, Andrew?
I'm good, man. We've been recording the second half of this double album that we've been working on. We just started rolling out Eviscerate. We put out our new song, No Weapon Formed, last week. And the second half is another batch of 13 songs called Mend. And it's been a roller coaster of a ride trying to get it recorded, but we're I would say probably about 70% done, almost 75% done now. We'll be done by March 3rd, I think is the slotted end date. So really excited, really happy with how everything's going. Personally, it's like been such a smooth process with this current producer that we're working with. And it's just been amazing. The music's been really incredible. It's just been really long hours. So it's like super slammed every day. It's 7 days a week. Usually it's, because of my involvement with the recording process, it's generally like anywhere from 7 to 10, sometimes 12-hour days, just in there getting each thing perfect. But yeah, all in all, really good. After we wrap this interview, I'm going to hit my warm-ups and then go do vocals like right after this. So.
Heck yeah, man, that's awesome. So when I first heard about this double album, I think that was like a Troubadour because like it was on the poster. You had like it was like all your albums that you had contributed to and had been on, and it's a double album. But with the way it's going, it seems are they going to release at the same time, or is it kind of like a System of a Down, Hypnotized, Mesmerized kind of situation where they're just one complete story released at different times?
Yeah, it'll be the latter. So ideally, we're really trying to get it out this year. And if for anyone who's listened to any of my previous interviews, most people know my disdain for the music industry at large. And so it's like an artist's vision for how something that they want to implement, right, is really reliant on funding. And a lot of bands, unless they're funding it themselves, they get that funding from a label, and a label obviously will prioritize what to fund and when, based on what they think their return is going to be and how quickly that's going to be. So obviously on a label like Rise Records, you have some really heavy hitters that are immediate returns, which is like Dance Gavin Dance and Polyphia and Spirit Box, and bands that are kind of in the mid tier, which is bands that cultivate and are kind of in that 1,000 cap room space where they're growers, right? And so the funding tends to be a little bit more limited on what you can accomplish. So like, just to put it in perspective for people who may not know how the music industry works on that token, when you sign a deal and usually will have like X amount of albums that you're obligated for, and then options, which are optional takes that the label can have. So with Rise, full transparency, Eidola signed a 1 album deal for the architect and then a 2 option deal, which was with this double album, which was 2 separate releases for it, right? And in that 2 options, you have access to the funding each way. But you only have access to X amount of the funding at a time, right? So it's, you have X amount in production costs and recording, X amount for visuals, so music videos, and then X amount for marketing, sometimes tour budgeting, things like that. If you want to, your song blows up in Europe and you need some funding to go out and do a European tour, things like that, right? And so for us, we wanted to do a double album that it was really ambitious, even from the jump. Like when I came up with the idea, I was like, this is pretty fucking ambitious. Like System was already a huge band at that point. When they did, Hypnotize, Mesmerize, like they were already such a massive project. With any one of them could have funded it themselves. Like any one of them had all the money in the world to do what they wanted. For us, we're in that liminal space. So it was basically like, okay, how do we get the most out of this, and how do we do it right, and how do we do it in a way that's also unique? And so part of that concept was, with the heavy album with Eviscerate, I wanted to work with a different. I didn't want to do the same thing every Swancore band does every time, or every band in our scene, because as much as I love it, some of the constructive criticism is it can get a bit incestuous, and I don't view it that way. I view it as more of like a community building experience. The more that people take part and they engage with local bands, local communities, and everybody lifts themselves up, and everybody lifts each other up, then it becomes a scene, which is what's really lacking in modern music, in my opinion. In the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, there were pockets of scenes, even back to, 50s and the 60s with Motown. It's like these scenes of people building, and they'd collaborate and they'd feature, and it was just amazing. So with Swancore, that's something that we all engage in. We try to lift it up. But with Eviscerate and Men, what I wanted to do was, I really wanted to push the boundaries of what Eidola does on both sides of the spectrum of our sound, right? And so I wanted to take our heavy sound and explore a new producer that wasn't. I love working with Chris Crummett, but I wanted something that sounded a little different. I wanted a death metal producer, which I got in a guy named Mike Somm. He's worked on Chelsea Grin, Crown Magnetar. He's worked on with these like fucking just gritty, ball busting death metal bands. So I worked with him as a producer. We got on 7-string guitars, detuned to drop G, like just really tried to push the boundaries with new tools, new modalities, new producer. And we accomplished that in Eviscerate. And so for the flip side, I wanted to work with like a more traditional pop producer, a lot more like acoustic guitar layering, piano ballads, string arrangements, just really high level production, and to give it that dichotomy of sound. And so in order for us to pull that off as a band, we essentially had to split the release into two counterparts to make it a double album, where we had access to the label's funding up to the maximum that we could get for the first album, so that we could have it be the best presentation we could do, and then tap our second option for the back half, right? So that we have access to a brand new pool of funding. Because if we only took the one funding for 26 songs, the whole release would have been really lackluster, because we would only have X amount of money for the music videos, the vinyl pressing, the merchandise. So we really thought, with Rise, we're like, hey, how would you feel if we just did this double album and split it between two independent releases? That way we have access to the entirety of the funding between two. So we have access to option 1, option 2. That way the fans that are listening, they get the most out of the experience. And so far that's been the case. The only thing is you can't tap your second option's funding until your first option's released. So I put my money where my mouth is, and I funded the recording for this portion of the process. Like I'm fronting that money myself at the moment. So there's a lot riding on making sure Eviscerate's successful, so that we can recoup that. And then, like I said, my money's on the line at this point, going into Men, in the multiple 5 figures category, where it's like, I believe in it. I believe in the project that we're doing, and I believe in the fans that we have. So that's, the motivation behind it. But that's really why the split is there. Otherwise, if we had access to, $250,000 or something, I would just do all 26 tracks and fucking, do it all at the same time. But this was like the best way we found to implement the vision and still have the funding on both sides to make the most out of it for the listener and for the audience.
Oh yeah, man. That was like a deep dive introspective into like the trials and tribulations that you have to go through just to like accomplish your vision within like the guidelines that are set that makes the most sense. And I mean, most success stories in music, it usually comes around to that point where somebody bets on themselves and believes in their art that much that they're going to, do what they can to keep the wheels spinning forward. And I think with like No Weapon Form Shall Prosper being like that first glimpse into this process and stuff, like I think you're a smart betting man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's the response has been amazing so far. It's been like over triple the like numeric response that Counterfeit Shrines got when we came out with the Architect, which is really, really cool to see like triple the amount of growth in that amount of time. Is something we weren't necessarily anticipating and something that we're really, really happy with. And it gives us a lot of hope that we can, continue to put out the music that we want.
Yeah, I love that, and I can appreciate that you're putting your own money into it, man. As somebody who's on like, the much smaller side of music, I often find myself putting a lot of money into the whole DIY sort of project, and really it's a labor of love. At the end of the day, it's like I'm going into this thing like thinking like, well, it doesn't really matter if like hundreds of thousands of people hear this song. If a couple of people hear this song and it touches them in the right way, then then it's worth it. So I'm actually like in the studio right now. I had to take a little break from helping out my buddy James, who is the lead singer of my band, The People Collection, and we just made him full-time lead singer of my post-hardcore project, Life Among Lions. And he's working on a solo project right now, which actually, Andrew, you are doing a feature on. Not
Yeah,
this particular song, but you got something coming up with him.
yeah, I'm
Pretty.
stoked. Yeah, I'm mega stoked. And yeah, that resonates with me too, man. I came from a background of funding everything myself when I started. And that's really the heart of it for 99.9% of musicians. It's like you're really doing it because you love the music, I mean, people have different various reasons across the board, but if you believe in what you're creating and you want to share it with people, you believe in the art that you're making, you have to be willing to do that. And this was inspiring for me, and it also lets people know, full transparency, like just because you have a label deal or just because you have backing with like a notoriously big label that's, endorsed by Sony BMG, it's not just a ticket to, immediate success or a ton of financial backing. There's still a lot of hard work involved. And at the end of the day, if you're not passionate about what you create and passionate about what you want to share with people, it's not going to pan out for you in the end, no matter what. I mean, that's got to be the root of what you do as an artist. In my opinion, it has to come from a place of wanting to create and wanting to share with people and being willing to go out on a limb for that.
Speaking of features, you've been doing quite a bit of those recently. You had the one with Galleons, Wolf and Bear. Like you've been lending your vocal strength out there, man. Like, is that something you find yourself wanting to do more of, like more features? Because you got Live Among Lions and you got the solo project coming out. Like, how would this someone like reach out to Andrew Wells, being like, I think your voice will make this song so much better, Andrew?
So I have an email. It's just Andrew Michael Lessons at gmail.com. And I obviously, I've worked with people in the past doing guitar lessons, vocal lessons, and coaching. I've used that email also for just like fitness advice. I've had people that I've created programs for, exercise routines. But that is a place where you can hit me up for features. I offer very comparable rates, especially if I like the music. I cater it. I'm not just like I know some guys in the scene, they'll do just a flat rate for anything. I usually will try to cater it to like if I really like the music or I'm engaged with what you're doing, I always try to work within your budget. Because for me, I love collaborating. I think that collaborations and features are just fucking awesome. I think more people should do it way more often. I don't know why people don't do it more often, especially in today's world. It's like, you know, I know not everybody has like the greatest, you know, recording setup in their house, but if you have a decent, you know, if you have an Apollo and you know, you don't have to have a Manly reference, you can have a pretty decent mic and you know, any, you know, remote knowledge of the DAW and maybe some Antares, you know, for tuning touch-ups, like you could collaborate on anything. Most of the time, I haven't really done a lot of features where it's just completely random. Sometimes I have done a couple and they've been really fun. And they're different every time. Some people want you to write the whole thing. Some people have like a pre-written. Hit me up for the Galleons. It was really cool because he was like, yo, I have this song. Here's the vocals already done. He's an incredible singer, fucking super talented guy, sweetheart, amazing musician. I hung out with him last time we were in Brisbane. Just an awesome guy. And he hit me up and was like, yo, I got this song called Cry Baby. I got the vocals are done. This is the verse I want you to sing. And then wherever else you feel like you can kind of toy with it, you know, throw in some counterpoint, you know, throw it back up some screams, go for it. And so I sent him this big old file. It was just like I did, you know, highs, mids, lows. I did a bunch of, you know, screaming on it. Saying his verse, changed like a couple little tweaks, nothing crazy. It wasn't a departure from what he sent. It was really fun. It was like really collaborative, and it pushes you as a musician too, because you have to be cognizant. Like I try to do everything with intention. I think most deep listeners of Eidola understand that, where I've had people come up to me from the audience and they'll be like, I heard this motif in this song from this album. And then I think you brought it back on this album. And it's like, they're catching little Easter eggs that I leave in there that I think no one's going to ever pick up on. And then they're like, no, I saw that. The lyric you used here, you used it here. So everything I do is with intention and focus. So like if I'm writing for dance or if I'm writing for Eidola, I'm cognizant of the previous material going into it. And when you collaborate, you're in a new space, you're in someone else's space, right? You're like, okay, well, this is what they're trying to manifest. This is what they're creating. How do I lend myself as an additive to that? How do I kind of take on their artistic persona and integrity and integrate it into whatever they're wanting out of this part? And so it's really fun. And like the Wolf and Bear one was a blast. Tim sent me that song, and was just like, you know, hey man, I'd love for you to be on this song. I think it's going to be, you know, I think it's going to be great. And I sent him the vocals. My friend Ian Cooperstein produced them with me, and we just demoed everything out, sent him over, and he loved it. He's like, this is going to be the single. And we rocked with it, and the rest of the Wolf and Bear guys liked it. And then after he passed away, they decided, yeah, this is going to be one of the lead singles. Are you down to be in the music video? I was like, fuck yeah. And so I like literally took like a red eye, flew to San Francisco, did a whole day of shooting. It was like right between, it was literally between that solo show that you were at in with Stolas. I played that show, and then I flew out at like 5 a.m. the next morning and went to San Francisco, filmed that Wolf and Bear music video. And then I flew to Florida to track vocals for those 2 DGD songs.
Oh, wow. So after the Troubadour set, after you're done singing some Johnny Cash and some Fleetwood Mac, you're like, I gotta
and then
I gotta go.
Hopped the flight, went in, fucking, you know, did the music video, and came back. And it's stuff like that. It's like, it's definitely hard work, but it's worth it. You know, that was like an homage to Tim, and it was really cool to be a part of it. But I love collaborations like that, like any type of feature where it's just really, really cool. And like Josh said, when him and James hit me up about this solo project, I mean, they're so talented. Those guys are crazy talented. The guy's a really, really good singer. He's got a lot to say. And I'm really excited. I get the chance to work on it heavily this weekend when I have my one day off of the month. So it's going to be, I'm stoked. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about it, man. So I'm just kind of helping him with some instrumentation as far as his solo stuff, and he likes to have me kind of in the studio to help him help direct his vocal takes and stuff. But really, it's his baby, and it's man. The whole reason that I had him kind of become the new vocalist of Life Among Lions is because he started showing me all these solo tracks that he's making on his own, and he's been working with like this DAW. He's been working with Pro Tools for like 6 months. He knows nothing about recording software whatsoever, and he's just blowing me away with what he's done in this short amount of time. And I'm like, listen, this is going to this might be a wild idea, but let me reach out to you and see if we can get you on a track. And it ended up working out. So I'm really pumped about that, man. It's going to be cool. And for anybody that's out there wondering what that's going to be called, it's going to be called Jimmy in the Veil, and you should keep your ears out and eyes open for it.
Heck yeah, man. I'm stoked. You guys got me all excited. So with with your first No Weapon Form Shall Prosper coming out, when is that's your first music video? Is there plans for a new single coming out on the horizon? Is there any more music videos that we should be looking out for? Or?
You bet. If you guys like No Weapon Formed, you're gonna be fucking pumped on the next two, dude. I'm so stoked. This one, I will say, like, these records, this is like my brainchild. Everybody's got their fucking opinions. Everybody likes their fucking Degenerate Terra. And to speak to listen, everybody's got a preference, right? But objectively, for me, these are like this is my opus. Like, this is the most insane material I've ever written for any band. And it's 26 tracks. This is all by brainchild from fucking womb to tomb, like across the board, all the way down to the visual components. So all of the video treatments, I wrote them, with collaboration with, I came up with the original ideas. We collaborated with Brian at Black Box Studios to help flesh out, obviously, like shot listing and like making sure everything will work. But as far as like the No Weapon Formed idea, some of these things like came to me in dreams, where I had this concept where I was like, I want to do like like this artificial intelligence, antichrist, fucking dark demonic visual where these people are like plugging into the matrix and we're performing in the desert with this giant monolith. And I got a sword fight this guy. Like, people don't even know how much went into that shit. It was crazy. Like, quick aside, that sword fight scene, we filmed it with a different guy, an actor named Mike, super dope guy, great actor. He's like the guy in the cloak in the video he like pushes me into the water. We originally shot the sword fighting scene with him, and he was in a full suit of that, like where that metal gauntlet that's in there, he was in the full suit of like fucking Iranian like metal armor. It was like sheet metal. It was real. And when we'd have to do shots, we shot that for 8 hours. And because I'm wet coming in, they had to keep me wet throughout the whole shoot. So they're like spraying me like a cat with water the entire fucking time. Like, dude, every other take, like, all right, Andrew, get over here. Spraying me with water, keeping me wet. It's cold as shit. There's like a fan on you the whole time. And you're doing stuff, no choreo, like no safety instructor. You're just fucking winging it. And we shot it for 8 hours. And then unfortunately, they had like a data corruption. Something happened with their hard drive that had that footage on it, and it got deleted. It got corrupted. It was unusable. So I had to fly back when we did the music video for a song called Fistful of Hornets. I had to fly back a day early and do the entire scene again, 8 hours again. Like, and I'm on the floor. It's fucking, and unfortunately the actor couldn't come. Yeah, I got sprayed the whole time again. And the actor couldn't make it work with his schedule. So we actually got my friend Mark Aces, just jacked out fucking, security guard level guy. We got him out, and it turned out so much better because we had the Eviscerate mask that time, and it worked amazingly well. But it was tons of work, and it paid off great. It was an amazing visual. That next day, we did 2 locations for a video called Fistful of Hornets. It's fucking awesome. We rented this space that Shaq owns in Vegas. Apparently, it's got a big like 3D video wall, like super high definition. We like printed this fucking giant honeycomb thing. We're in a bunch of beekeeper outfits. It's fucking dope. It's a sick ass video. It's a lot more playful, energetic. The song is super violent and like really heavy, and it's really short. It's like 2.5 minutes. It's like a traditional like hardcore ripper, drop A, just like a beat down song. So I'm super stoked for that. That's the third single coming out. And then the second one is for a song called Who of You Will Persevere. And I'm not going to spoil it, but it's my favorite out of the three. We had our friend Matt Cole and his girlfriend Paris directed, and they absolutely crushed it. It's my favorite thing that we've done so far, and it's actually like it's funny too. Like Eidola is traditionally more of a serious toned band, but this is like, in my opinion, like almost Foo Fighters level of just kind of comical and funny. And like, if you know the guys, like the guys in Eidola, they're all teddy bears, they're all sweethearts. It really, like, you can see our funny side in that video that you don't really get anywhere else in our music videos. So it's really cool. So that one's coming out beginning of March, and then right before the album drops, Fistful of Hornets is going to come out. And then ideally, I'd love to do one more visual after the album rolls out, if it continues to go well, for a song called He Who Pulls the Strings. But we'll just see. We have to see and kind of make time for that. And then by the time that happens, our Mend will be mastered. And so we'll really have to start planning for how those visuals are going to be and what the singles are. So.
Oh yeah, dude. That's good things to look forward to. It's always nice to have something on the horizon. Nobody likes sitting in the dark going, I wonder when that new Eidola is coming out.
Yeah. First week of March, first week of April, album's out.
Those years, those are the dark ages, and they're long behind us. We have information. We have album info all on deck. We're all informed now. Josh, did you have any questions? I don't want to hog Andrew.
I appreciate it, man. I got plenty of questions. Honestly, I actually reached out to a couple of different people individually, and I reached out to Temple Posting, as you know, big group of massive, dedicated, diehard fans of Eidola, who most of which participated in the 1,000 Decent Memes Army. So I got some things here we can definitely talk about. I did want to kind of just drop in a little comment. Be careful what you say about getting sprayed down and everything, because there's plenty of Eidola fans right now that are just getting all kinds of hot and bothered about you talking.
They're the ones that need to be sprayed now. They need to. Poor Andrew. We were at the show at the Mesa, the Red Nile Theater, and like I think through most of your set, there's just a dude in the crowd like, "Take off your shirt."
Yeah. That was Mesa. That was Mesa. Yeah, it was the same guy every song. He kept saying it. This isn't the place. It wasn't as bad. There was one guy in San Diego that was right in the front, and he was so drunk. He was just fucking hammered beyond belief. And he was a sweetheart. He was singing every single word, but he was pissing off the people around him too, because he was just so drunk. It was so loud. And he was singing the John parts on some of the DGD covers, like just screaming the John parts. You're like, this is not the venue for this, bro.
Oh God. Well, so I guess as far as like my part goes, I think I'll put it in Andrew's hands here and let him decide. So we have like some questions, obviously that I've taken some notes from the people that I've asked, and we can sort of dive into that. But I think the main goal of this interview was to sort of get a mild track by track sort of conceptual explanation of the architect from up to this point. We have had you do the Great Glass Elephant, Degeneratera. You had the Teal Cheese article with To Speak to Listen, and all are great sources of information. I think it's given people a really great idea of, what's really going on in your head when you're laying down the ideas of this concept through the music. So we kind of wanted to offer them that again. Doesn't necessarily have to be super detailed or anything, but we would like to get that. And I think the other goal of this interview was to sort of get a mild summary of the new albums and what they are conceptually going to look like. So we have that piece, and then we have sort of the question and answer piece. So whichever you prefer to dive into first, we can.
Yeah. As far as the architect goes, I know that, so the frustrating part about being in a band like this that's very ambitious, that has like these ideas and concepts, is implementing the material, the creative material that really conveys those ideas in a really sound and concise, measurable, impactful way. And when you have a band like Coheed, right, that just blew up at the center of things when that whole scene was blown up, when Fuse TV was a thing and MySpace top 8, like everybody was like hopping on these trends, and Equal Vision was having its moment. You had Portugal the Man, Coheed and Cambria, Circus Survive, Chiodos, like you had all these bands that had these different levels of success, and they all translated to major labels. It was this huge time in post-hardcore music. And Coheed had so much funding right out of the gate that Claudio could just be like, yeah, I'm going to do a graphic novel series, and I have 1 million people that can fund it. We don't have that luxury. That's just the honest truth. Like, I would love to do a graphic novel series for the entire Eidola concept. And if I have it my way and I continue to generate the income that I'm personally trying to generate, I will fund it myself if I have to. That's the point that I'm at, where I know how much this band means to me and how much it means to a lot of other people, and how much the concept has resonated with people that come and talk to me at shows, and send me emails, and and have that engagement. I know how impactful it is. And so my greatest goal is to be able to convey the entirety of the narrative in the best way possible. And so I've thought of different ways to do that. And I've made some genuine attempts, right? I had some plans to do like a long form podcast track by track with a couple of different people. And unfortunately that fell through. There was just no way to work out scheduling or funding for it, the amount that they wanted versus what we were getting out of it, their credentials for like media filming. So I will just preface this, give you the preface. Like, I'm super down to dive into some basics on the concept. And I do want to let you guys know also that, to anyone listening, that there are plans to do a graphic novel series. That is in the works currently. It's, obviously like finding people that can, integrate, like if you're listening to this and you work on graphic novels, you do animations, you do visual media, please send me an email. I would love to work with you. We haven't sent out like an open casting for that, but if you listen to this and you do illustrative media, I would love to partner with you on that. We've always made it a thing. What's that?
What was that email they can send? They can message
Andrew Michael Lessons, just Andrew Michael Lessons at gmail.com. Yeah, send me an email. We're working on the narrative pieces of that right now. We're getting that all finalized. But yes, I'd love to do like a graphic novel series, so there's a visual representation, and then a long form documentary style podcast as well. That's a little bit more in depth, track by track. There's also a lot of this too comes from management, right? Like I'm the artist, right? So I already, even in comparison to my peers, right? Most artists, when they're in a band, they will go in and they have one job, sometimes two jobs, right? You have a guitar player that his job is to track guitars and maybe some backup vocals, right? Your drummer, his job is to track the drums, sometimes write them, but track the drums, play the drums, right? My job in Eidola is to write and compose and record a majority of the guitars, all of the bass, all of the clean vocals, with all of the songwriting, I do all the drum programming to send to Matt that he'll learn and embellish on. I do all the MIDI programming for the pianos, any string arrangements, any synth arrangements that you hear. That's me. I do a lot. At Eviscerate, I do a ton of the scream vocals with Matt. There's a lot of partnering up on that. There's a lot of back and forth and counterpoint. So I'm doing like 6 or 7 jobs, also coming up with the visual medium content, and just like helping run the band. So a manager for someone like me is like really essential. And when I have management, I'm not going to say names specifically, but when I have management that like has not really come to the table to deliver on things, on ideas that I have, it's really tough. It's tough to navigate. Even things like the 1,000 Decent Memes. It's like I have so many ideas of gifts I want to give and things I want to present that previous management they're like burn and churn, right? They're just like, whoa, no, that doesn't work. We need to get this done. That's not reasonable. We need to do this social media thing. So now in Eidola, we're more or less self-managed. We have a partner that's working with us on like day-to-day. It's our tour manager. His name's Gino, fucking sweetheart. But it's me and Sergio at this point now. And we just got to a point where we're like, fuck this. Like, let's run the band the way we want to run it. Like, no one else is going to tell us how to do things. No one else is going to tell us how to present things, how to talk about things. Like, we're going to fucking run it the way we want to run it. And everyone else can fuck themselves. Like, we're just going to do it. Like, that's how we're going to do it. And so now we have an opportunity. It's tough. It's a lot of stress, but where we can be like, okay, this is what we want to set up. We want to set up really cool, unique experiences for 1,000 Decent Memes. We want to give them like, we have some things in the works for that. We've got a documentary for Mend. We have a content guy named Mel who's been amazing. He's filming like a long form. It's going to be like a 35, 45 minute, like full on documentary. So a lot of the stuff that we've been sending out to like Lalo subscribers, those are clips that are going into a long form documentary of the actual recording process of that record. And you get everything. You get all my fuck up takes in the vocal booth, grinding on guitar, all that stuff. So there's a lot of exciting things for running the band independently that we're really looking forward to, that are going to come together in the future. So with that being said, The Architect is the next installment in the series of the overall narrative. And Eviscerate and Mend are the closing components. They're the last of the saga completely of the entire narrative, and it all comes together and loops back concisely. So to anyone that's followed it, who's read about it in To Speak to Listen, the narrative essentially leaves off in that where you have the protagonist, right, who you come to find out in these graphic novel series, the protagonist's name is Samsara, which is the reference point in the end of To Speak to Listen. There's Sahasrana, which is a Buddhist mantra that's repeated, but there's also Samsara, which is if you're a Buddhist or Hindu, is a pretty prevalent term, and so you can do your research on that yourself if you'd like. There, in Degeneratera, the way that it sets up is a split duality, right? It's like the split duality of the universe. It's a 2-spirit format, right? So you have the end of the Great Glass Elephant. Samsara dies on the mountaintops of the Himalayas, and you go into the afterlife with Samsara as a 2-spirit being. That is presented in this format of Degeneratera where he's zoomed out, right? If you've read that Tiochi's interview, he's in a zoomed out perspective of all of mankind. And that's why the record's set up the way that it is. It's set up in dualities. And so you can see past, present, and future, first, second, third temple. And it comes together with Contra kind of at the center as like the fulcrum behind the whole thing, right? In To Speak to Listen, one component of that 2-spirit being is reborn in the world, in the universe, in that universe as a demigodal being, right? And his goal is to experience all of the vicarious learnings of the great teachers of theology and philosophy throughout human history. So he's essentially embodying Jesus, Siddhartha, Muhammad, pantheism. He's basically trying to embody all of these different spiritual beings in an effort to bring humanity into a oneness, back to heal, so to speak, to heal the universe and bring it back to the end of suffering, right? And in the end of To Speak to Listen, you have this culmination where, if you can picture samsara as just this meditative being at the center of peace and tranquility, but can hear echoes from multiple timelines. So this would take into account the physics principles of like multi-universe theory, right? Parallel universe theory. And he's essentially acknowledging that there is another timeline in the universe that's corrupt, that needs to be brought to heal, and that he's got to find a way to bridge the gaps between timelines and heal that, so to speak. So that's where To Speak to Listen leaves off. That's like the narrative to that point, right? The architect is that other component of the two-spirit being that's reborn in that timeline, right? And we'll just call him the architect. That's the protagonist, the main protagonist lead role here is the architect, right? So hidden worship is essentially an overture between the parallel timelines. So it's like the yin and the yang, right? Two parallel universes. The universe that the architect is set up in is in what Hindus would call like Kali Yuga. Again, you're free to do some research on that. The Kali Yuga is essentially like in that belief system, there's generally 4 stages of yuga that all of mankind in the universe goes and oscillates in between. And they view these spirits as like there's the concept of the Atman and the Brahman, which is the living soul and the oneness, right? So the living soul is like your body, like what you live in every day, your consciousness, the things you eat, the people you interact with, the worldliness, your separation from God, or whatever you'd like to define that as, right? The Brahman is the oneness of all things, the creator, the pantheistic being of energy or light. Again, however you'd like to define that. I'm just going to use terms that I know, right? So the Atman and the Brahman are these 2 separate conditions in this timeline. There's a lot of measurements of time that are cyclical, and within that, between the start of humanness and the end of oneness, there is 4 stages of yuga. And in some of these stages, it's celebratory. Mankind is at peace. They're in love with each other. They're celebratory. There's excess. There's wealth among all beings. There's tranquility. And in some of these, there's general struggle, right? There's hard work. There's determination, and then there's like just straight up suffering, right? Where mankind is corrupted and people are lying and cheating and stealing and manipulating each other and murdering each other. The Kali Yuga is the latter. It is basically a period of time in human history where things are bad. Things are not what they should be. And I think that concept, it resonates generationally, but I always try to make every song applicable to a like personal perspective without all of the concept to still be a good song, and then also have deep conceptual meaning. So with stuff like this, I think most people can resonate if they're in today's timeline. It's like there is a lot of suffering. There's a lot of death. There's a lot of loss. There's a lot of confusion. And that's really what I'm trying to embody with this as well, to give it a human perspective, like in the now, that people can relate to. So the architect universe is essentially, I would put it as like a mirrored universe with our own. It's in the Kali Yuga, the end of all things, the destruction. So hidden worship is like the overture. It's to set it up. Every album I try to do an overture of some kind to give you an introduction to what the album's going to be and what the concept's going to be, right? Counterfeit shrines. Now, I'll get more into this long form, but just for the sake of definition, so you get the basic long form. The first of the 2 spirit, right, that is reborn in To Speak to Listen, is, we're going to call him the alchemist. Okay, so the alchemist in To Speak to Listen was reborn as that demigod, as a godlike omnipotent being, right? incarnating holy prophets throughout human history to achieve this like Godhead status in To Speak to Listen, right? To bring all souls into like harmonic submission is the attempt, right? And that's how it's incarnated and throughout the album. And as he achieves that like godhood and begins reaching through space and time, that process becomes corrupt, as most people would be able to observe. Is like a lot of people's problem with religion or religiosity is that it gets corrupted by man, right? A lot of people's stopping point for religion is where they have leaders that are human that fail miserably and become corrupt and become the antithesis of what spiritual faith should be. And that's essentially what happens in the Alchemist's timeline. Is it becomes a hunger, right? Over time, this being that's a demigodal being eventually becomes what ancient Hebrew would be the Satan, right? Or the Antichrist figure, which is all beings need to submit to this and have no free will because I know better than everyone else, right? So this Antichrist type figure, as the alchemist, becomes corrupted over time in search of trying to find that corrupt universe to bring it into submission. So you see this permeate in the architect's universe. So the architect's reborn in that human parallel timeline, but he has that spirit of creation, or the Brahman, within him, and he's one of the last beings in that timeline to have that. So it, again, if you're visualizing it, it's a yin and a yang scenario, right? It's the darkness he's in the darkness with that one piece of light. This guy's in the light with that one piece of darkness, and they're expounding within each other. They're molding and dancing, right? It's a very, very entrenched concept. So as the world of the architect exists in, as the spirit of the creation is lost throughout time, corruption, demonic possession, things of that nature, in the narrative, in the constructive narrative of Counterfeit Shrines, basically a black hole is opened up by the alchemist. He's finally like bridged the gap, right? And is sending these demonic forces to bring about Armageddon and destroy the universe that the architect exists in, right? So it gets you to think about what's good and what's evil, what's true and what's false, right? It's really to elicit that question, and then also question the terms that you use to define those things, right? So in Counterfeit Shrines, it's really introducing the world that the architect exists in and how that's permeating. Caustic Prayer, the architect is very much narrative driven, and the graphic novel will really help you personify what this character means, because instead of embodying these demigods or this unattainable thing, the architect is human. He embodies like what it is to be human, what it is to suffer and lose, and persevere. And so in Caustic Prayer, the architect is abandoned by his friends and his family because he believes that the alchemist is evil. He's one of the only people that believes that this otherworldly being trying to get everyone to submit is actually not good, is actually evil. And so as he's abandoned by his friends and family, he's slandered, he's maligned, he's ostracized from society for believing in God, for any type of belief whatsoever. He's cast out as an other, and he's very resistant to these changes that are happening in the world. So you can hear that in Caustic Prayer in the chorus. I got a feeling you've been selling me out. I never bought it. I never wanted. It's all there in the lyrics. It's pretty cut and dry. I love the way you hate me, like lead in your lungs. Like those lyrics are all relevant there. To that particular song. So Empty Gardens is where the architect is trying to essentially, like for lack of a better term, evangelize in a way, where he's trying to bring people into his line of thinking, where he's like, yo, this is there, all this propaganda, all this evil exists. You guys got to resist. Like what's happening? Everybody's, we're in the Kali Yuga. Everybody's killing each other. Like what's going on? And you have that in lines like, bring me your cold and tired. I want to bathe them in the fires of my love. Tell me your one desire. Like those lyrics, the days turn into nights. The days turn into nights. Feeding all the doubt inside of me. It comes with that self-doubt of like, do I really know the truth? Am I proselytizing the truth, or am I proselytizing the lies? So you have that self-doubt in there that's coming in. Empty Gardens really tries to permeate within that narrative what it is to stand up for what you believe in. So and he's chased into the wilderness at this point, right, as the architect, and he has very few people left in his life. He has a soulmate that he's with, that's his love interest, right? That's something, again, for the graphic novel narrative. And he's chased in the wilderness and falls into a crater, falls into the earth. And there's a couple lyrics on some previous albums that talk about that give reference to that, but I'll let you dissect those as deep cut fans. Brings you to Occam's razor, which is as they fall into the cave, his soulmate drowns, right? And so there's that's a very heartfelt small passage you can gather from the lyrics there. Where are you now, my light in the darkest of days? Song of mourning. And it leads into perennial philosophy. And this is where a lot of the sci-fi elements of the narrative get played in, right? So we've been following Eidola. It's a mystical, theological, philosophical narrative piece that also incorporates some type of science fiction. So it's like it's somewhat of a nonfiction, somewhat of a fiction, all in one, is what the attempt is. Again, ambitious, but this is how my brain works. So this is how it works. Perennial philosophy is where, so the architect is like downtrodden. He's in this cave. He doesn't know what to do. He's fucking cast out of society. Everything's collapsing around him. And he sees a blue light in the depths of the cavern. And he makes his way through the depths of the cavern. And this blue light is a lotus flower. It's like a glass lotus flower that's just resonating blue, right? Deep blues. For the reference of the song Low Tide, back into Speak to Listen. So, as he begins to meditate and pray for the ultimate forgiveness and connection back to the oneness and hope for guidance, right? That's what perennial philosophy is, I know I'm going to let you down every time that I, like, all that whole chorus section. The song itself is very fourth wall breaking in a way, which I always try to put at least one song in each album that kind of breaks the fourth wall. It's very self-analytical. So, and I think I've seen a couple people have noticed that, where the lyrics are in succession. I spent my whole life searching for substance just to find an empty room. Each of those verses is reference to each of the prior albums, right? I'll spend my last chance being the martyr. Like that's the reference to the architect, right? So each of those, boom, 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 is a reference there. So it's very self-analytical, based on his previous lives, based on the timeline. As he meditates on that, as he meditates on the thoughts, forgotten tongues comes, and God responds and shows the architect his true destiny as like the final incarnation or the final hero in the final battles of good and evil, of true good and true evil, of yin and yang, the dance of the Atman and the Brahman to collide in the end of all things. So you can imagine, he's meditating, there's this blue light explodes in the lotus flower. He's able to transcend those dimensions. And this is essentially his last shot to like overthrow evil and give free will back to humanity at large and have it sort itself out. So it's a conversation, right? It's a conversation about lineage and history and philosophy. It's if anybody who's ever struggled with faith has ever had a wrestling moment with God, where you go, well, but if you're real, then this, right? If this is real, then XYZ, right? I think anybody who's ever had faith at any point has had that wrestling conversation of like, is this true? And if it's true, how true is it? And how do I live in my truth with what I believe in? And how do I build a community around it? And so that song's really focused on that. bringing into unequivocal nature, which is like the true nature of all things revealed, where the architect is now on a journey because he's realized all of his previous timelines, right? So like the architect's reborn without any knowledge, whereas the alchemist is reborn with ultimate knowledge. So all that knowledge from Degeneratera, it's literally a dichotomous pivot, right? As a two-spirit being, you have the alchemist who's born with the knowledge of all divinity, who chooses that path to bring all things into submission, and the architect who's born with no knowledge of anything, who now has to come, he's like, why is the world the way it is, right? Why is this happening? And then comes to develop this relationship with his creator, and now knows all of his previous lifetimes and what he needs to accomplish, right? So in the Great Glass Elephant, they're presented as yogis. There's that album split up, and I've done some synopsis on that, where it's split up between red, yellow, and blue. It's like very primary color based, very simplistic concept. They're basically yogis. They're bodhisattvas, and they're spiritual guides or gurus in Samsara's journey, right? Because he's in Tibet, he's in the Himalayas. That's his starting point. That's his ending point. The architect is in like modern day, like Israel, like straight up, like God, Palestine, Israel, Gaza, that whole culmination, which I think a lot of people could resonate with, regardless of your opinions. That place has a lot of religious history that's been warred over and fought over for thousands of years. And so his guides are not gurus or bodhisattvas, they're angels. They're more of your traditional, like monastic Catholic angels, right? Is how those are presented to him in his journey as the architect. And so unequivocal nature is his journey to find three archangels that are going to help him essentially gain access to, again, it gets the sci-fi going, a interdimensional ship to bridge the gap of the black hole to confront the alchemist head on for the final battle of good and evil. So unequivocal nature is that introduction. So he has to go back from the wilderness and essentially do what he was doing in Caustic Prayer, and like fucking shout from the rooftops, like fight every time you feel like giving up. Spit in the face of those who oppose you, like just brazen bravado, like I don't give a fuck what you think about me, this is what I believe. And as he's about to get killed by an angry mob of people, which is generally the response to that type of behavior, he's rescued by a man cloaked in yellow named Gabriel. So it's the Archangel Gabriel. Alchemist ascended. Gabriel basically takes the architect to a secure location and gives him the mask from the architect, gives him the armor of God. So that's where the mask comes in, and it protects him metaphysically from demonic possession. As they game plan how to reach the other angels, to bridge this black hole, as demons, aliens, however you want to define it, are making their way into the universe and corrupting mankind. The alchemist is essentially like keeping strayed souls from into slavery. So it's also another song about crippling loss. You come to find out, like, this will be more illustrated in the graphic novel series. The architect's mother plays a pretty integral role in the story, and you find out that she was killed due to his proselytizing in Caustic Prayer earlier in the album. So that song was a very, very difficult parallel, because Matt Hansen wrote the talking part of that when his mom passed away. So we wrote that in as like a parallel that really was a catharsis for him. He wrote it as his mom had just passed. So leading into the finality, like the last three songs of the record, Elephant Bones, Gabriel and the architect travel back to the Himalayas, right? Back to where Samsara originally died, to confront the sins of all of Samsara's past lives. So imagine it's like an Avatar scenario, right? This guy's like fucking confronting all the sins of history. And the armor of God is the mask of the architect is protecting him as he reaches the peak. So where Samsara died before, having no armor, the architect is able to navigate that all the way to the peak, where he sees Raphael, coated in blue, who gives him gives him basically a cloak that'll help him transverse. He gives him the cloak off of his back. He says, you know, this is you're taking the mantle from me as protector, right? And they now have to journey to the Archangel Michael to get the final piece of all things. So that's where Mutual Fear comes in. And Mutual Fear is like the album or the song itself. Really, when I told John what to write, I was like, just imagine it's Armageddon. Like, imagine it's literally like whatever end times prophecy, whether you're Muslim or Jewish or Christian or Buddhist, like every one of those religions has an end times prophecy, and all of them are ugly as shit. Like, all of them are fucking scary as hell. And the more you read into that end times prophecy, the more that you see like it's always like demonic forces and things collapsing in on themselves. So I told John, I was like, yeah, this is what the song's about. The song is essentially just like, imagine what Armageddon would be like if it's a real thing, as happening in real time. Like, the pits of hell open up and things just get fucking wild. And that's how it sounds, and that's how it's conveyed, and that's how it's written. So it's basically like the architect and two of the angels venture deep into Mesopotamia, into like ancient ruins of Samaria. And if you read anything about Sumerian culture, it's like some of the most ancient written writings documented in humanity that we are cognizant of, right? Sumerian writings, Sumerian tablets are pretty much like the oldest recorded that we can make out in terms of recorded history in Sanskrit, in ancient Hebrew. That's like the origins of man coming from there, and they all revolve around a belief system or integration with an Elohim figure. So in there they find Michael training with his flaming sword, right, in the ruins, and the architect essentially engages in like training with Michael to overcome the rest of his fear, his doubt, his anger, his sin. And all four of them travel back to the heart of Israel, where the concept of third temple is being built. That's a very controversial topic. I'm not going to go into opinions on that. This is just like a sci-fi narrative, so take from it what you will. The concept in this narrative of third temple is that it's like the parallel universe is built on the city itself, and is the origin for Armageddon, like where it's supposed to happen. So you have the concept of this place called the Valley of Gehenna, which is just south of Israel. It's a real place, and it's documented pretty substantially throughout history. There's a lot of different takes from that. I'll let people do their own research on that. There's a song in Eviscerate called Ashes in Gehenna, and you can take that as a modern interpretation. You could take it from any time in human history all the way back to 1800 BCE. Like, you know, take a look into it. It's very interesting. It'll get you to think. They travel to the Valley of Gehenna, and it's all hell is broken loose. It's literally Armageddon. The world's being consumed. The black holes, like if you've ever seen the movie Melancholia, where it's like Andromeda X is like it's two planets colliding. It's essentially the visual there. It's like, it's just all fucking mayhem. And right as that happens, it goes into Ancient Temperament, which is like the final battle of this world in the parallel universe. The architect and three archangels, they have to make the final stand in like this unrecognizable world of evil and wickedness, and fight their way through evil, essentially. And so you have Raphael, Gabriel, Michael. Raphael and Gabriel both die in the process, but they make their way to the throne room of Third Temple, which is on the Temple Mount, and make their way down into the basement. And it's essentially what it turns out to be in this narrative is a multi-dimensional spaceship. So imagine the pyramid is actually a fucking spaceship. Imagine like a Baroque pyramid that's a interdimensional spacecraft, right? And as it begins to take flight. Like they access all of the mechanics of it. An amalgam of demons is like, it's basically like the death throes of that world. They come to attach themselves to the ship. The Archangel Michael comes and just fucking wipes them out, but kills himself in the process, kamikaze style, as the ship goes and traverses into the black hole. And that's the end of the Architect. And the ship ascends into the firmament, into the heavens, towards the black hole. The concept there is it actually goes through these layers of what's called the Naraka in Buddhism, which is like the 7 layers of hell. It has to transcend through this multidimensional space to bridge the gap between the universes. So that's where it leaves off. So musically, very intentional there. You can hear where the song like culminates to this peak and then drops out, and there's just this instrumental, very like moving, like circular. It's just this space, and it's just the Architect like in the ship with the mask floating through time and space in the universe, through the Naraka, through the black hole, to confront the alchemist head on for the final battle of good and evil. And that's the end of the Architect. And then it goes into Eviscerate and Mend, the double album climax of the final battles of good and evil. And that's the guy, dude. That's the narrative. So as you can imagine, if you listened to that whole thing, how sick that would look in a graphic novel. So that's really how we're going to try to convey it. That would be like, to me, the best way is an illustrated medium, so that there's visual components that help people piece together the entire narrative, because it is a lot, especially if you come from any faith background. If you've only dabbled in that, right? There's going to be a lot of terminology maybe you don't agree with, but I think if you open your mind up to the levels of terminology that can be used, it can be really impactful in a lot of ways. So, but that's the general narrative of the Architect.
Man, that's incredible.
Hell yeah.
And thank you for all that.
Yeah, no sweat.
I think, with my personal deep dive into the various interviews and information that you've kind of put out as far as the concept of Eidola goes, I think that explanation that you just gave really gives a little bit more of a like a real image as far as what all of that looks like. And the comparison to it in the graphic novel allows me personally to visualize it a little bit better, to kind of put characters in places and faces to things, and really gives a whole direct sort of narrative, as opposed to what has been provided before, where we sort of have a couple of different ideas that we sort of have to piece together.
So, that's actually it's another point of intention there too, is the Architect, not only musically but lyrically and then conceptually, is more streamlined, focused as a narrative piece, right? It's in an effort to help that all make sense, and which is, in my mind, like, I view art in that way, where it's like, my job is not to tell you what to think and how to feel about things. It's to encourage you to think about things and to feel things, right? And how you interpret that is up to you. And when I'm layering legacy pieces like that, my goal is to give people something a little bit more direct access. Because if you conflate everything and you make the message extremely convoluted and hard to understand, it doesn't matter how good the message is and how much it could resonate with people. It'll fall on deaf ears a lot of the time, because there's too many layers to get through. Versus if you give them access and then you give them a history to sort through, it provides a lot more depth, right? So you could take the Architect and have a narrative to it and attach those characters and pieces, and have songs that are really heartfelt and resonate, and lyrics that make sense, and song titles that are pronounceable, and things like that. And then you could go back through the catalog and go, oh shit, okay, this goes way deeper. Okay, now I can get more into the abstract concepts. Now I can dive into more of the esoteric, Gnostic things that are a lot more tongue in cheek, or a lot more hidden or reserved, or paralleled in a way. And so that's always been my effort right? My intention to do with that. And I think that that's awesome to hear that that's resonated with you and translated in that way. Because I've always tried to do that. And The Architect was really the first record with Eidola where people were coming to shows in droves and singing the lyrics and talking about, you know, how impactful the songs were in their own journeys. And, you know, and then it's now led to people going back through the back catalog and being like, whoa, there's actually some really fucking cool songs here. And yeah, and people have opinions every which way. You know, it's like, this is my favorite album. This is what resonated with me most. But The Architect seemed to be, at least from my experience, globally, like the most resonating piece so far. And I think that I would absolutely love for these next two to be an embellishment on that, to help kind of further that aim. So.
That's cool, man. Yeah, it definitely it's got me thinking about these connections and kind of focusing on some of the things that we heard from the first three albums. And uh you know, it really makes you, you know, this concept explanation, it makes you go back to those pieces of the story and say, okay, well, now these things connect, now these things make sense. You know, I see where you were going with this. And also the twist of, you know, the protagonist basically becoming an antagonist
Yep.
at the end of Speak to Listen. So you know, I see you maybe pulling some tricks out of what's his name, M. Night Shyamalan's bag there. But no, it's cool, man. I think like the whole idea of the concept, it definitely the concept that you just or the explanation that you just gave makes the concept really come together, and I'm really excited to hear how that kind of continues with the next two albums. I know fans are really looking for an understanding of, you know, what you're looking to say with the next two albums. So I want to ask if there's a way that you can sort of give us a little bit of a summary on how those are going to tie into the narrative without really giving too much away.
I mean, I would love
like a plot synopsis.
Yes, yeah. I would love to do another one of these like breakdowns for each of those records once they're out. Would be awesome. And again, like the graphic novels are going to be a huge component of that. But Eviscerate is, as you can imagine, like the final battle of good and evil. And the way that I would kind of synopsis that is, you know, if you can picture like if the alchemist was left in To Speak to Listen as this like pure meditative being of light, this kind of guru with the big beard and the long hair and fucking, you know, every trope you can imagine, has now become this like corrupted techno antichrist demonic figure, right? You're imagining him kind of at the center of all things, like he's in control of all things, like he's this demigodal my way or the highway ass motherfucker. Like he's in the center of all things, like full control, tendrils and things coming out every side. He's this demonic figure. The mask from Eviscerate, that's the alchemist. So
That's kind of gathered.
yes. So the architect's got that nice, you know, circular mask, right? The alchemist is the horns. He's the demonic figure that's presented there. And the general synopsis of Eviscerate is this final battle or this final wager of good versus evil. And it plays into like the you know, I don't want to call it a cliche because I don't think it's a cliche in my opinion, but the 7 deadly sins, right? And that's been a it's been a narrative in media for a very long time. Even in modern media, you know, you have the movie Seven, or you have like these different plays on the overarching concepts of the 7 deadly sins of lust and envy and greed and pride. And so each of those songs takes a chunk from that. So obviously, as with any record, Eviscerate starts with Atman, an introduction to suffering that really drives home that Atman Brahman concept, right? And goes into a bridge of iron and blood. So it's the same thing. It's a full overture synopsis of what you're going to get into of the record. It's their meeting of these two yin and yang forces prepared to go to battle. And so the record really focuses on an abstract narrative of like a competition of who can outlast each other, who can outcompete and resist in a war of the 7 deadly sins. And it's like multi-dimensional type shit. It's some Rick and Morty ass, like, you know, just fucking parallel dimensions, you know, periods of human history where your people are wrestling with morality at its core of, like, you know, it's juxtaposing between, you know, how they can inhabit certain people's bodies in parallel universes, like Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great. Eviscerate primarily focuses on periods of human history that are really riddled with like war, strife, loss, violence, mourning, you know, just grief, destruction. I mean, it's a very violent album. It focuses really on like the you know, if you're looking to explore your thoughts and feelings that resonate with, and which we've all had, is that we've all struggled with, is like, you know, how do you grapple with hate? You know, how do you grapple with resentment? With you know, how do you as a human being grapple with that? And I think a lot of people struggle with that. I mean, look, you know, I've been off social media for a hot minute, but you don't have to look very far. You know, you don't have to go very far to find fucking assholes on the internet fucking spouting a bunch of bullshit all the time. Like, you don't have to go very far. And if you're a person that does that on the regular, you should fucking take a look in the mirror and observe your life and see how much you are suffering and how much you're bringing suffering into the world and how that impacts other people. Why are you choosing that? You know, every day, why are you choosing hatred? And so the album really focuses on that. It's like, why do you choose hate over anything else? Why do you choose violence? Why do you choose malice and division over all other things? And so that's really the wrestling point, is good versus evil, you know, hate versus love. And you know, resentment versus forgiveness. I think is a lot of the topic of Eviscerate. That's the general synopsis. And Mend is obviously the counterpoint to that. There's more narrative that goes into it, but the very last line of Eviscerate paints a very stark picture. It's the very last lyric I put on the record, and once you hear it, it's pretty deep cut. And then it begins in Brahman, the Garden of Eden is the first track on Mend. And that's a kickstart of the final piece of the narrative that's really focused on like the explorations of rebuilding, of forgiveness and peace, reconciliation, love, celebration, periods of human history that are focused on that, on you know, birth, rebirth, community building, the best of us, you know, the best that humanity has to offer, charity, things of that nature. So it really is like a, you know, 26 song epic. And then it closes out in a really cool way that I think brings everything back full circle, all the way back to the Great Glass Elephant. And it wraps it up nicely in this like tight knit package where, especially as a graphic novel series where you can visualize it, in my mind, it makes a ton of sense. And sonically, it gives a lot of people stuff that they can pick apart in years to come and gain new things from, which I've always tried to make art like that, because I always resonate most with art that does that for me, right? If I go to a museum, you know, if I go to the American History Museum in Manhattan, and I've been there fucking 8 times, I still haven't seen everything. You know, it's like I've been there fucking 8 times, 9 times. There's still shit I haven't seen. There's still shit I pass up every time. And it's just astounding how much can be gained from witnessing to human history and all the things that our species has built over thousands of years is really an incredible thing. It makes you very grateful. At least for me, it makes me very grateful to be alive and to witness to it. So yeah, that's essentially the synopsis between those two and what we're trying to convey in the final Eidola records.
Hell yeah, dude. So with I think that's the little overscopes. Do we want to go to community questions, Josh, or do you have anything else to add?
Let me turn my microphone on here before I talk.
Oh yeah,
So,
that works.
there's I guess like we can kind of get into some deeper questions. Again, I wanted to say thank you, Andrew. I think a lot of people are really appreciative. I know that I am, of that explanation, and giving this story to us to kind of make of it what we will. And I think there's a lot to be learned from it. I think there's a lot to not necessarily to be learned, but I think there's a lot of things in the story that will have people thinking and looking inward. And I think that's important. You talk about, the hatred in the world, and like the overarching concept originally, for at least in the first three albums, is, is the idea of overcoming, suffering. So if there is something that people can take away from this concept, it's that, it's a look inward on how we can do better as human beings to get closer to the lack of suffering, and without necessarily becoming the alchemist.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the goal, is to just get you to think about that, and like what morality really means in your life, and how you can mitigate the suffering of yourself and those around you, and really foster love instead.
Yeah.
Always kind of been a through line in the material.
Okay, so let me see if I can access some things, because I just realized that Marcus had some great questions that I didn't necessarily put in my notes. So I'm going to have to like sort of navigate to his text transference. So if you give me a second to do that.
Yeah,
Marcus, for all those who don't know, is our resident journalist, admin of Eidola's Temple Posting, the Facebook group. And what an incredible brain on this guy. He has done some fan analysis posts about To Speak to Listen, where he took a deep dive in Andrew's interviews, and some deeper listens into the concepts that are explained throughout the first three albums, as well as a deeper dive into various, spiritualities, theology, and some books and teachings of, some figures that Andrew himself has taken into account in sort of creating this narrative. So Marcus has a lot of great questions. His first question obviously was what's happening on The Architect, which you did a great job of explaining. So
yeah,
thank you.
I hope Marcus gets a lot out of that one. I think he'll have a field day. So
Yeah. Oh yeah. He actually really wanted to be here, but unfortunately because of his job, he could not.
Yeah.
But
He,
shout out.
he's got the FOMO today, Marcus. We miss you. We wish
it's
you
all
were
right.
here.
Next time.
Yeah,
So
you're gonna need analysis videos for Eviscerate Men. So I
Yeah,
mean,
dude.
Marcus.
We'll recap for sure.
yeah. So Marcus, again, he was asking, is there significance for the final chapter, the concept being a double album, which you kind of explained a little bit already as well. He was saying, is the framework of a duality essential for understanding the ending? And I think that you have accomplished answering that through the concept that you just painted. And also, obviously the albums before this give you that idea, with especially with like Degeneratera, you have to know that there is a duality to kind of understand the rest of what's going on here. And so again, we have To Speak to Listen, which is one part of the story, and then The Architect, which is kind of the opposite. So he wants to know, how do you balance writing more accessible lyrics with the esoteric references that give the concept its fullness?
I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. It's tricky. It's hard. Especially, yeah, that's a really good question, because I do always try to go in with intention so that it can resonate with people that don't share my same beliefs, or don't even have any inkling of faith. I mean, of any kind. Like, I still want to make songs that are human, that resonate with anybody who chooses to listen to them. And I know that for some people, you know, even using the word God in songs or using any spiritual language whatsoever is going to be a turnoff. That's fine. My music's not for you. You know, my music is for anyone who's even willing to ask the question, right? Even if you don't come to the same conclusion, I don't think that's relevant. I think it's explorative. It should be explored and looked into, and you know, anyone with an open mind I think would agree with that. And so it is a tricky balance, you know, because I'm also human, so I do write from a place of my own experience too. And so there is a pull there of like whatever I'm going through at the time, I'm going to incorporate to some extent in some of the lines. It's just natural. Like I can't, it's not so, I don't want to be so esoteric where I'm using like character names, you know, like specific character names in a song where it's like, what the if you don't, where to the point where if you don't know the concept at all, you're going to just be lost. You're like, what the fuck is this dude even talking about? I've never wanted to make music like that. I still want a song. To me, song is king. Like a song should be a good song, no matter what. And so I'm always going to make that effort. But it is tricky. Yeah, I would say there's definitely some intention behind it in terms of like laying out lyrics phonetically that sound good, that are fun to sing. They're singable, they're relatable, and then they're also tied back to the narrative. And so yeah, it is tricky, but it's a lot of fun. It's like making 1,000-piece puzzle, you know, and then you're just like really trying to get all the pieces in their right spots and make sure everything fits correctly.
That's cool. You know, for me, one of my earliest you know, exposure to concept albums was Coheed and Cambria.
Mhm.
And see them do exactly what you're talking about with, you know, mentioning these names in the songs. And it always struck me as kind of strange that I would listen to these songs. I really had no idea, you know, who or what they were talking about, yet it was still like something that I could engage in, which, you know, I think is a good testament to, you know, songwriting. It's like if you can do that and still have people, you know, bopping their head, it's pretty cool. But I like your approach with it, where you have a little bit more of a, you sort of take a step back from, you know, the necessarily direct storytelling, because it gives people this open room for interpretation. So I really appreciate that, you know. And you know, something a little parallel that I kind of made earlier, that you mentioned, wanted to kind of bring back up, was the music video. In the early stages of Coheed and Cambria, when I finally learned about like the concept that was behind that, they had a lot of music videos that never had anything that really tied directly into the story. You know, with this music video that you've released, you know, recently, it was like it was very obvious to me that this was like a conceptualizing of your narrative here. And I really, for one, I appreciated it because it gives you some sort of visual as to what's going on in the story. Whereas like before, we haven't really had much of that. There has been some, you know, obviously with some of the music videos from The Architect and things like that. But before, uh, you know, I think the videos before that weren't really super directly
No,
tied in,
not at
you
all.
know.
Yeah,
So
that was just us being like, how do we make a music video and who's gonna do it? Yeah,
yeah, and I can appreciate that, you know. And that also, that's kind of a neat perspective too. You know, you have like this concept, but like the music video gives an idea where that even though there is this story behind it, you can put something else over top of it, and now it means something different. You know, so it kind of brings us back to your writing style and how you don't necessarily put a bunch of names and things, and you give people the option to interpret it as they want. So if somebody doesn't want to take a deep dive into the concept, they don't have to. They can relate to it on a different level, which is really cool. So let's see, what else did we have? Uh, Marcus wanted to say that he's glad to see lengthier, more referential song titles back with the new album. Why did you shift away from them with The Architect and then back towards them for this record?
so I think I touched on that a little bit earlier, which is if you make a message too convoluted and too esoteric, for the intention behind that, I think you run the risk of it just being of it reaching far less people. And there is a balance there, obviously, like bubblegum pop melodies that are rehashed. You take a song where the licensure's up, like fuck, that happened super recently with a bunch of songs. There's that I'm blue, da ba dee da ba da. There, that song got repurposed with some, I don't even know who did it, but you know what I'm talking about. Like it got, that shit sucked.
Yep.
Well, I
Like,
was there.
oh,
I never thought I would miss Hypel 65 in 2023, but I did. I was like, what did you do to my boys?
God, massacred my boy. I was like, but it's like, okay, there are labels that know that because they have the rights to the licensing. There are melodies that just fucking get jammed in people's heads and they're very profitable and tons and tons and tons of people listen to them. So there is a line between like making the simplest, lowest common denominator shit to reach the biggest audience and like the most esoteric thing you could possibly imagine. And I really tried to like bridge the gap there, try to find something that was like, how do I pay homage to the history and legacy of Eidola, still maintain the integrity of the lyricism, the conceptualism, build it into a narrative that's more understandable, and then also build song titles that are a little more that have a little bit more grip. Like song titles, it was all 2-word song titles that all played on the duality of things. And I didn't want anything that was super far out, that was like way too hard for anyone to understand, because it was an attempt to try to get more people into the fold to understand it, and it worked. It's our by far most streamed, bought, engaged with album by a long shot. I mean, I would say it's already racked up almost twice as many streams as To Speak to Listen in a fraction of the time. To Speak to Listen is like an album that's like 8 years old or something, and it's the Architect's done that in a third of the time, or a half the time. It's already racked up almost twice the amount. And so there's something to be said for like being able to bring more people into the fold and see what's behind, what's under the hood if they choose to look. And so I just didn't want to go super esoteric with the titles. And then on Eviscerate and Mend, I think I did a pretty good balance of like going back a little bit and doing some more of the esoteric titling that is, it's not super hard to pronounce. Like there were songs on the great, like Yarzate Homily, like words that are just like really esoteric and hard to pronounce. There are a couple of those here and there, but they're really not that crazy. You have like Ecclesiastes, but most people know what that is. You have the Kali Yuga, like there are definitely concepts. Ashes in Gehenna is definitely a fucking deep cut concept name. But then you have stuff like Bridge of Iron and Blood, No Weapon Form Shall Prosper, Who of You Will Persevere. I did want to go back to long form titles on these ones because I felt like it was very fitting. And Mend is the same way. I feel like Mend has, a good combination of all those titles. Where let's see, yeah, it's got like it's like kind of mid long form titles, nothing too crazy esoteric, but it definitely plays in like Godhead, Final Temple, Kaleidoscope. There's some really cool stuff.
Awesome. All right. Well, great answers, man. I appreciate it, and I know Marcus will too. I had like a couple of questions that were personal for me, and then I'll jump into some of the questions from the guys from Temple Posting. I wanted to know specifically, are there any songs written or recorded before The Great Glass Elephant was released that are important to the Eidola concept? And if so, is there any plan on releasing, re-recording, or reconceptualizing those tracks, namely House is One? Is that part of the story?
Man, I would say no, unfortunately. That was still a time where we were really getting going. I mean, I didn't have this entire narrative written when I started, because like the songs that I wrote on like the songs that I had written for the EP for the Great Glass Elephant. We did an EP that had, you know, 4 of the songs that ended up on the record was like our first written and recorded music. But I wrote some of those songs. I wrote The Golden Rule when I was like 17. I was like 16 or 17 when I wrote that song. And I wrote it in a place called Medicine Bow, Wyoming. We were working on it was like a summer gig. The town was like a population of like 270 people. It was like 4 dirt roads by 4 dirt roads, no grocery store, but it had 2 drive-up bars you could buy liquor from, and just a no man's land. And we were working there as a summer job to do like windmill cleaning because it paid really well. And I remember writing those songs, a couple of those songs, just in the bedroom there. And you know, when I got back to Utah and I started Eidola, those songs permeated into that band. And you know, I didn't quite even really know what they were going to be at the time. You know, I'd had an idea of kind of what I wanted to do with this general concept, but you know, I had to really like manifest and sit down and see what it wanted to be. And so before we could do that, we kind of still were trying to find our sound, which I think is very, very obvious on the Great Glass Elephant, because you have songs ranging from Argue to Bastard's Fire to Yarze Homily to Ours. And we did try to sonically, it was a concept at the time of like, hey, the front half's going to be like aggressive rock, you know, pop rock songs. Second half is going to be kind of groove, fun, bluesy songs. And the back half's going to be really introspective, you know, reverbed out, spacey, prog, shoegaze songs. And that is how it was conveyed, and that's how it came across. And I'm super proud of that record. But anything before that was very much like experimental. Like we had a song called Old War, and then Houses Movement 1 that was very much like just seeing what we could write as a band together and seeing what it really translated as. We've had discussions about maybe doing Houses Movement 1 as well as like 4 songs off the Great Glass Elephant re-recorded with our current musicianship and equipment and producing and, you know, all this stuff, and doing like a little 7-inch vinyl for those.
Do it. Yeah,
we've talked about Matt Hansen and I have talked about that idea into the dirt. Just it's about finding the time to do it. But we do have plans. Yeah, we would really like to get back in the studio and do those. It's a matter of like meeting up all together in person. You know, Matt has his firstborn now. He's been raising in Alaska, and outside of like getting together for brief stints to record or to tour, it's pretty tough to just get together and write, or to like rehash older material. But it is something on the agenda for sure. Like hopefully next year we'll be able to like implement that and put it out. Because after Eviscerate and Men, there's no immediacy in our planning. It's basically like here's our farewell, you know, jaunt, and we're gonna see what happens. Like, you know, if after that there's juice in the chamber and we all are inspired to write, I would imagine it'll probably be a couple years before anything substantial comes out, because 26 songs, it's exhausting. So and it's a lot of material. It's plenty of material. There should be enough to like hopefully satiate people for a little bit. So I know attention spans are low these days, but fuck, like 26 songs is a lot of songs. Like just fucking, you know, try. Just fucking put some time in there.
Yeah, we're blessed. We're blessed to have that. Very fortunate that you put all that energy into that. And you know, yeah, I agree with you. Hopefully people can kind of be satisfied for a little while with that.
Yeah,
you made one mistake though. You said something about a Great Glass Elephant EP repress redo thing, and now that's all that people
that's
like
all
me are going to be
talk about. Yeah.
How many memes? 500, 600? I'm just
Let's go. 600. Just do an even 600.
I'll get Durst posting on the horn, man. We'll have a bunch of My Way and the Highway.
Posting, bro.
Good stuff. But
all right, well,
yeah, keep giving them quick. We have a bunch. I know we do.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna keep firing away, man. Again, I don't want to take up too much of your time, Andrew. So if you at any
you're
point
good. You're good. I got till 12:30, and I'm solid. So
Okay, cool, man. All right, so next question is what are John's words after the Mad Fractals line? Do you know?
Not off the top of my head, bro.
Mutual fear, because we've looked at the lyrics on Genius and on Spotify and things like that, and there's nothing after the Mad Fractals line, although he clearly says something.
Man, it's on the spot, dude. Yeah, I don't even I'd have to go back and re-listen.
I'll tell you,
I don't think
I'll
John.
tell you what. Oh man, yeah. Think on it, and if it comes to you, get back to me, and I'll make a post about it or something.
Perfect.
And
Yeah. Let me I'd have to go back and re-listen to
It's
it, but
it's part of the puzzle, man. We're
yeah,
trying to
exactly.
yeah,
decipher. You can't give away all the cookie making secrets. Some of the stuff in the Eidola needs to be figured out for people selves. You got to believe what John Mess says. I mean, it's there
so
somewhere.
that brings me to was there a conceptual purpose for John's feature on the album?
Man,
Armageddon.
that lyric's like on the tip of my tongue because I remember when he wrote it. Fuck. Yeah, I'll think about it. I'll get back to you on it. I got to re-listen to know the exact words, but it was a really poignant, cool thing. No, not nothing like super conceptual based with that feature in terms of like getting him specifically involved. That was actually pretty spur of the moment. In terms of like, I mean, John and I are really good friends. I love John. He's a dear friend of mine, and it was, some people, I think I've done some interviews on it, but that was a super interesting time because I've obviously had to balance both projects, but we were in the middle of recording The Architect, and then Dance Gavin just like fucking butted right into the middle of the process where I was like halfway done with The Architect, and they're like, we got 2 singles to record. And it was Headhunter and Blood Wolf that we'd written together. And so I was like, okay, cool, let's do them. And we had to put off Eidola for like a week or something to get those 2 songs done. But we got in there and recorded them. And, I was laying down guitar for Headhunter. And if, for anyone that's been to Chris Crummett's studio, Chris has a studio on his property that's like, it's a great studio. It's got a good live room, his main room. And then he has like a band quarters accommodation where, it's a kitchen, living room, and that's all great. But the living quarters is like a bunk bed area. And so there's 2 bunk beds. There's no windows in this room. Right. So it's quite a place to record because you'll record, stay up late, work your ass off, and then you go and you sleep, and there's no light to wake you up. It's just pure darkness. And so it gets a little wacky in there, but especially when you're sharing it with people. So I think it was like me, John, Till, and Will were in this room together on these bunk beds. And I think Will's tracking or something. And me and John were talking, and he's on the top bunk. I'm on the bottom bunk. I'm like, yo, I got this song called Mutual Fear. It's like pretty heavy. Do you want to, I'd love to get you on it. And he's like, yes, send me the lyrics you got. Send me what it's about. I'll write something. And he like literally cooked something up that day. And when he was done tracking his stuff, we had an extra day. And he just laid down the vocals on Mutual Fear after that. It was really cool. I really appreciate him doing that. It was really fun. But yeah, as far as concept goes, no John tie in there. Just a dope friend down to throw down on the song.
Nice.
Music video came
So
out. The music video was dope too.
Thanks, man. Yeah,
oh
yeah,
yeah.
that's another black box, man. They crushed that one. It's really cool.
They've been churning out the hits, man. They even did a Royal Coda's video too.
Yep. Yeah, they're awesome, man. I love Mason, DC, Brian. I mean, those guys are all really, really good homies. They're very talented, very fun to work with.
So I think you touched on this one a little earlier with features. So I'm not going to make it too redundant, but I did want to know there's specifically a feature that you did where you sang the entirety of the song because the band that asked you to do the feature is an instrumental, Secret Gardens. They released a song called Sun Shower that you were involved with. And I wanted to know if there was any tie into the Idola concept with those lyrics, or were those completely just a personal expression?
Those were, so there's no Eidola tie in there at all. Those were, that was actually a concept from Greg, because if you follow Secret Gardens at all, Greg's phenomenally talented guy, a fucking sweetheart. I love Greg. That process was a ton of fun. You know, I did a lot of cool demoing for it with Ian, and then he liked it. And then we had this back and forth where it was just trying to find a time to like record the hard vocals. And the way we ended up recording it was so sick. I had a show in Rochester on a dance tour, and he was like, if I book an Airbnb, do you have time? Like, could we record this the same day that you're in town? I was like, fuck yeah, let's go for it. And so I literally like woke up in Rochester, got breakfast. No, I think he picked me up. We got hot dogs, and we went out to this little, it was like maybe 20 minutes away. It was like this little upstate cabin in Rochester, and he had everything set up. And between eating and sound check, I just went and fucking laid down all the vocals, and then I went sound checked, came back. I think did a couple punches, and then played the show. It was super, super cool. It was a busy day, but it was really fun. And that's what came out. That was how the song came out. It was really cool. And for Greg, he concept-wise, each of his EPs, each of his records is like an installment based on seasons, right? So he has like a fall, a winter, a spring, and a summer. And this was a springtime, record. It's, Everbloom. So he told me, he's like, hey, this is what the concept is. It's instrumental, it's focused on springtime and reawakening and things thawing out and flowers blooming. And, can you, kind of take your spiritual take on that and incorporate this seasonal aspect. And so that was what came out.
Cool. Excellent. All right. Well, so I'm going to kind of move past my selfish ambitions here with my questions and get to some of these questions that Temple Posting proposed. You did mention something about the Great Glass Elephant potential vinyl. Marcus Wilbur wanted to know if the original Great Glass Elephant album will ever be released on vinyl or CD again. There's a lot of people that were interested in picking that up, and what they want to add that to their collection. So,
man, as much as I would like to, it's just not possible. It's just not possible, unfortunately. So what goes into vinyl printing, and a lot of people don't know this, I mean, you have to have original masters, right? You have to have original mixes, original masters. I mean, you just have to have the files. Technically, I could rip like an MP3 version of it from, one of the CDs that I have, or like the Bandcamp files. Like, technically, yes, I could do that, and then just stick them on a vinyl. So, I mean, if people really want that, maybe we could do that in the future, like very limited press, like 100 or something. But that record's like notoriously not, it's by far the lowest engaged with, like lowest streamed album. And so because of how much vinyl costs to print, there's a demand, ratio there that has to be met in terms of like, like To Speak to Listen, those were super limited for a long time. And so when we repressed them, they sold out immediately. It was like there was a demand for those. Like there were people that were like, fuck, I love this album, please print it on vinyl. You only printed it once, assholes. Like, just print some fucking vinyl. And so we got the label to do that because there was a demand for it, versus like putting up thousands of dollars for something that may not recoup, or something that's not a guarantee. I'm always down to do that for the art if I'm really a fan of it. But the main thing is like, do I feel comfortable printing like a subpar recording on vinyl just for 100 copies? I don't know. I don't know if I'm super comfortable with that yet, but we'll see. I mean, it's unfortunate, but like the guy who recorded that album, I wish him the best in all things. But we had a brief falling out when we were both younger that I mean, I can guarantee you this guy does not have those files. Like, there's no way in hell that guy saved the original files to go and remix and remaster and print in a way that would be deserving of that vinyl. I just don't think that's even possible. Versus like the, like Chris Crummett always has everything he's ever done on different hard drives, and it's a pain in the ass to get them, but he has them. You know, it's like it's a pain in the ass to go and fucking pull those hard drives out and sift through the material and go and do that, but he has them. And so that's always a potential. And it was our naivety in our early days of not getting the stems, which we do now. You know, we get the stems for backing tracks in a live scenario, you know, synths and clicks and things like that. Like we, you know, Mike that did Eviscerate, he sent us the stems like right away. Like as he got it, he just sent us the stems for the entire record. And so we could literally remix it however we want, print it however we want, use them however we want. That just unfortunately doesn't exist for the Great Glass Elephant. So I would say the likelihood's pretty low. It's pretty low.
Heartbreak.
Understandably so.
I know, bro. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I will try. I mean, like I said, like our compromise is like re-recording some and trying to do like a cool, unique print that we know would like really sound good and do it justice and give a cool vinyl print.
That's why I'm stoked for that. As long as Bastards Fire is on it, man. You know.
Oh, you know it. Yeah.
I'm itching. I'm itching.
Yeah. Our votes were Going Nowhere, Bastards Fire, Yarze Homily, Golden Rule, and Ours. Those were our 5 that we were like, we're gonna riff those ones. So
nice. All right, so let me hit you with a couple of let's say easier, more lighthearted questions. We got some from some fans. Candy Tianu wants to know, what's your favorite dinosaur?
Oh damn. Triceratops.
Triceratops.
Yeah, dude,
right.
It's a solid answer, man. There's a lot of
those things are badass. It's fucking
right?
horns. I mean, how can you go wrong? Those things are sick.
They eat plants, but they can kick ass at the same time.
Exactly, dude. They're badass.
Cool, man. Let's see. Matthew Mangrum asks, what's your favorite hot sauce and why isn't it Secret Aardvark Habanero?
Joke's on you, bro. It is Secret Aardvark. No, I'm just kidding. I've never even fucking heard of that. I'm gonna have to try it. I love good hot sauce, man. I really do. Like one of my favorite breakfast dishes is chicken and waffles. I eat that as much as I possibly can. And I love a good hot sauce with it for sure. I mean, this is such a stock dumb answer, but like Cholula is my go-to, man. If I got more into like the boutique, like customs, I mean, I'm sure I could find something I really fucking vibe with, but Cholula is just a go-to at every restaurant that has it. Because it's always Tabasco or Cholula, and Cholula takes it every time, 100%. So yeah, I would say it's probably that. The DGD hot sauces were actually pretty good. I had the strawberry one once. It was okay. But then the lemon one was sick. I ate that with some wings. That one turned out really good.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to try those. I'm interested though.
Wait, what was the Aardvark? What was the one again?
It was Secret Aardvark Habanero.
All right, I'm gonna check that out. I'm gonna see. I probably have to order it on Amazon or some shit.
Is it made with real aardvark, or does an aardvark make it?
Yeah, it's chunks of aardvark in the hot sauce.
You know, good.
You're telling me an aardvark
made
this hot sauce? Like,
yeah, they only employ aardvarks.
Are they well taken care of? Like, do they have like
they're locally sourced. They're fine. They get paid a good wage. They get paid a living aardvark wage.
You know, like these are the questions that keep me up at night.
Yeah, me too.
Oh man. All right. So, Carrick Olson asks, what video games are you currently playing? I'm not really sure if you're a gamer, but let's find out.
Man, I have a fun answer for this. So I used to be really into video games. Like as a kid, obviously I was huge into video games. I've really been kicking myself in the ass lately because I work so much. Like I'm constantly working. I'm either like in the gym, doing my diet, in the studio, writing, recording, or practicing, or on tour, or getting ready for a tour, or filming a music video. Like it's constant work between both bands and solo material, like all this shit. and managing all that, that I tend to neglect self-care pretty hard when it comes to, some people would say gym is self-care, but the gym is self-care and work for me. It's like a constant, it's like an everyday thing. So like self-care for me is like literally like decompressing, doing fucking nothing, like doing nothing. Like, I spend, any free time I get, I usually am like outdoors. I usually will try, if I'm back home in Utah, I'll try to go on hikes. I'll try to get out and walk my dog, just do something outside. So real time off for me is like, I've been trying to carve out even little pockets, like 30 minutes or an hour of self-care time where it's like, watch a movie or a show or play a video game. And I don't really watch a lot of TV, or consume a lot of media like that. I'm not on social, so I don't consume media. So lately, like what I've been doing is like I set aside like 30, 45 minutes to just play a video game and like give my brain a break from reality for a second. And I got really into the game Hades for a while on my Switch, and I fucking love that game. Will got me super into that game on tour, and so much fun. Just a fucking hack and slash, super fun, like randomized maps type of game. Really liked it. I'm looking forward to the second one. And then I beat that one enough times where you get like the final ending. So I finally got that one. And then I was like, okay, well, I need something else. And I spent a couple days, just while I've been here. I spent a couple days like going back through like the mods of like the N64 games, or Super Nintendo, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, or like fucking, all the old Mario stuff. And then I just picked up Super Mario RPG, like the remake, the new one. And I it's been fine. It's cool. It's like, it's honestly, it's like a really cool one to play for like 30, 40 minutes at a time. You get in, you do a couple battles, you call it a day. But it's making me want to go and play my favorite games from my childhood, which are Final Fantasy games. Those are my top tier favorite games of all time. It's Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 7 is like my top of the top.
Are you,
So
I have
uh,
a question. Have you played the remake? Because
no, I haven't. Is it good?
the second one's coming out right now, and it ties into the first one because it's kind of like the old game was 3 discs, so it's kind of
Uh-huh.
like they're releasing each disc as like its standalone entry. And I was playing the
It,
demo for the new one that's coming out, dude. I'm stoked. It's so good.
fuck, dude. Oh yeah. Okay. So here's my question. So you played the first one then?
Yes, I have.
Okay. What's your take on it? Because here's the review that's kept me from playing it was that they said it was basically just the Midgar sequence. Is like pretty much the first one's just like all Midgar. Is that what it is? Is it still worth the play, or is it?
It's okay. So here's the thing: if you were to go back and play Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation One right now, a majority of your time will be spent in random battles.
Mhm.
So the first one, Final Fantasy VII Remake, is basically disc one. It's the Midgar section, and you go all the way to the end where you escape on the bike and all that stuff, and you're about to go get into the open world. Now, it's called a remake, but it's kind of like I don't want to spoil it, but it uses that term very. It's not like I wouldn't say it's a reboot. I wouldn't say it's like a reimagining. It's kind of like you're re-experiencing this again. For most people that play this game, this is the second time you're going through it. So it's kind of like you're seeing this world
Okay.
it's definitely more like pronounced. It's not like a 20-hour game. You're not going to be done with it in 10 minutes. It took me about like it's like a 50, 60-hour RPG. You can get up to
Oh
level
shit.
50.
Okay.
It's sick, dude. As a fan, as somebody who enjoyed like cuz I mean Final Fantasy 7 was like kind of like Eidola where it's like it has a lot of spiritual like,
Totally. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that's where that's still my favorite game of all time. So that's hearing you say that definitely encourages me. I think I'm
Me
gonna
too.
go pick it up because
I would 100% recommend as somebody. I mean, one of my usernames like from all my old emails was like Super Cloud, Super Zephyroth. Like I was
run
gung
that
ho for
shit.
that stuff, and
And if
I'd
you're
read.
saying the second one, it's like it opens it up. It
It's
goes in.
the open world. That's the second one's an open world game. Yes, it's like you're gonna be able to go in your buggy. The demo that's out
Oh,
right now. It's
sick.
the
Fuck.
the demo that's out right now, they're coming out with another one on Wednesday. Like I think tomorrow is the second part of the demo, but the first
All
part
right,
of this
I'm
demo
in.
is like Cloud's like when he like is in the hotel and he's recollecting, oh yeah, we went to Nibelheim. Zephyroth was there, and you get to end the demo. They let you play as Zephyroth, which was cool as fuck.
No way. All right, you
Yeah,
got me hyped up, dude. You got me fucking bricked
it's
up. I'm gonna fucking
it's super sick.
check this shit out hard, dude. Fuck.
No, I
You
would
guys are,
say, what was that, Joe?
I say you guys are preaching to the choir here. Final Fantasy VII is actually my favorite game as well. And like, I'm really not much of a modern gamer at all. I am very much like a retro gamer. And I've got something that Andrew, you might be interested in. We're going to have to talk offline about it, but I might be able to put you onto something pretty unique that if you're into
Sweet.
old stuff like,
Love it.
you're going to appreciate.
Yeah, hit me up.
Cool.
Mods.
All right. So, all right, I got another question, kind of a light one. Brandon Michael asks, what is your favorite workout and how much can you lift currently?
Oh, that's a fucking big question. It depends on the lift. I I would say my favorite workout, um, God, there's so many good ones. Um, any type of like
Well,
super
what's
maximal. What's that?
I was gonna say, what's maybe I can make this easier. What's specifically your favorite exercise to do, like favorite movement?
Man, I really do. I've grown a love for all things except for legs, and still been doing legs more than ever. But I still hate them. But yeah, I would say like I really love. I have an affinity for shoulders. I really like doing shoulder days. I'm still on I still swear by the bro split. I do push pull legs, 6 days on per week. In the studio, it's a little tougher. I've been doing mostly like 5 days on, so I've been skipping that extra leg day. Trying to get some squats in when I can in the studio in between takes. But it's yeah, I love I'm always a fan of push days. I would say it's probably my preference, any push day. I do love pull days too, though, man. I really love any upper body stuff is really fun. As far as like modalities or techniques go, I really like super maximal overload, time under tension type stuff. So, drop sets like extended partials. Sam Solik's a big fan of that stuff where it's like you're doing partials at the biggest extension of the range of your motion just to make sure you're getting to failure. Um, I used to train a lot of eccentrics too, so I used to do like a lot of eccentric builds. I still like eccentrics, but I'm just trying to modify and optimize my techniques and my lifts as much as I can. But yeah, like super max overload where you're doing like let's say you're doing like a hypertrophy set. Let's just use bicep curls as an example. You're doing barbell curls, and you're doing a hypertrophy set of like 8 to 10 reps, 6 to 10 reps, and then you immediately drop to half the weight of your hypertrophy set and double your repetitions. So you're having like a really nice drop set burnout. So if let's say you're curling 100-pound easy bar, you would then you curl 6 to 8 for your hypertrophy, drop it, and then pick up a 50 and then try to curl double the amount, try to curl 16 reps right away. I really love compound sets like that. They really challenge the muscle for progressive overload. That I think is like really, really fun and engaging. I like doing a lot of supersets, a lot of drop sets, just like combining modalities like that. And then like my push and pulls, I'll usually will just try to, you should be going to failure on everything in my opinion, but if you're trying to build muscle with hypertrophy, but if you're on like a standard split, I do like to change it up to where like my push day on Monday versus my push day on Thursday has a favorability. So like I favor chest on Monday and my triceps would be my synergist, but then I would favor triceps on Thursday and my chest would be my synergist on Thursday. So like, I'd focus on mainly like compound, big bench, like especially because I'm a tall guy, I'm like 6'4", 6'5". So I try to get as much of the extension as possible when I'm doing like incline bench, just to make sure I can get all the upper pectoral in that motion, just make sure I'm firing on everything, and favor that type of stuff. I love neutral grip skull crushers with dumbbells. Those are really, really fun. Especially like hyper extended, just to try to hit the rear head. And then I'll do stuff like tricep extensions too. Hi, Sergio.
Where are you at?
He just popped in, gave a little
He just
hello.
popped in the back, dude. The old
Damn.
we live together in this fucking house.
All I want to say though about your workout routine is that you and Bill Murray still need to like make like an 80s vintage like
Dude,
Hulk Hogan fucking
anytime, anywhere, bro. I love Johnny. He's fucking awesome, super talented. Your second part of that is like how much I can lift. I did go through a phase where I was really just pushing maxes a lot, and I would love to get back into that routine. It's so hard when you're in the studio. It's like just really, really hard to like continue. It's always hard. Everybody's got excuses, right? So I've fallen off a little bit strength wise, and I'd like to get back on my full routine, which I full well. I have some time off March and April before these tours. I'm gonna go as hard as fucking possible, but I would say I could still bench around 315, for reps. I could still do 4 or 5 reps at 315 on a good day if my shoulder's not acting up. Normally though, I'm just repping like 225, 245, 10 to 12, just trying to keep it in that like nice hypertrophy range on everything. Decline bench, 345, like pretty solid there. As far I haven't really pushed my 1 rep maxes in a hot minute. But yeah, bicep curls, you give me a 120 pound dumbbell or 120 pound easy bar, I fucking do that, no problem. Repping 21s out on 70 pound barbells. I like running the stack is what I call it on triceps. Like if I'm doing rope push downs, I'll just do like the maximum on the weights, try to bust out 6, and then I'll go down 10 pounds and I'll just run supersets. Like I'll run drop sets all the way down the rack, and I'll just fucking push out 6 reps each one. 6, boom, 6, boom, 6, boom. I'll just do that all the way down the rack, and that just fries my fucking triceps. Arnold would do a technique like that for hammer curls for biceps, where he would just run the entire stack of weights. Like he'd go and pick up 50s, go to failure, drop them, 45s, failure, 40s, failure, 35s, failure. You just go all the way down until you're curling 5s and you're just fucking just like hating life. I love that technique, but it's like it's such an asshole thing to do at a gym because you're literally like hogging the whole rack. It's like it's such a dumb thing to do. So I never do it in a like a public gym. Only do it like if I'm at home or I've got like a private gym weight rack. But that's cool. I've been trying to integrate some Rich Piana stuff. He's more of like he's not very safe. He was trend up to the 9s at periods of his life. He's just massively huge on gear, but he's got some real fucking aggressive pushing techniques that are obviously they work. So they're fun. My little brother's really into like Sam Solik. Sam Solik's like a big, bodybuilder right now. I do like a lot of his techniques too. He's very, very much into, that partial activation overload. So yeah, it's some of his stuff's really fun to incorporate. And then I've always done like Jeff Cavalier stuff. He's more of like on the lean tone, but still, muscular side of things. And so that's like the safe end of it. So right now I'm more doing the Jeff Cavalier stuff just for maintenance, but I like to, hop back on and do some really fucking big lifts here in the near future. So.
heck yeah, dude. And I thought some like in case anyone's it's not just vocal features, it's not just like Andrew be doing you do like fitness stuff. That was like on your VIP, you were like, I will work out with you. How did that go? Did you end up like bringing like a weight set with you or something?
No, it was great. So the manager that we had at the time, the way I wanted to book it was at like actual personal training studios. where I had the entire floor and I could do what I wanted. And unfortunately, that manager, we had a falling out with him, and we ended up firing him right before the tour. As it was getting set up, we found out he didn't do a lot of the legwork on setting up stuff that I wanted. So our management that we had for the tour, we kind of had to do a last minute where we were able to get a bunch of free passes for Planet Fitness at each of the dates. And so we would meet with the, basically all the packages sold out, every single one of them sold out. And we would meet with the clients at the Planet Fitness in the front, brief them on how it was going to go. And then I would do a group training, and I split it up into two. So it's like a group of 3 and a group of 2, or, a group of 2 and a group of 2. And basically just for like, an hour, 10 minutes, we would discuss like their experiences with fitness, what their goals were, what they wanted to accomplish, if they had any injuries, go over all of that stuff, typical NASM stuff. And then we would just dive in and go and do, for a lot of them, I would do it, like, if it was a diverse group, it was like, someone who's a younger woman that was more looking for calisthenics, and like an older gentleman who, wanted to bodybuild, and then like somebody who's just kind of wanted to ask music questions and learn about fitness. That's a pretty diverse group. So for that, I would do stuff like HIIT training, where it's all adjustable. It's like, okay, we're going to do HIIT training, 45 seconds on, 15 seconds off, 6 stations, 7 stations. We'll burn you through like a really fun, engaging workout where everybody gets the most out of it. It's nothing too off the wall. But sometimes there were a couple where it was like 2 guys that both had the same goal. They're like, hey, we want to bodybuild, like we want to lift. And it's like, fuck yeah, okay, well, today we're gonna fucking do chest day. And we're gonna set bench for, we're gonna set bench PRs, and and go and lift super heavy. And so it was really fun. I would adjust it depending on the clients for the day. I would say, okay, if it's diverse, we're going to do it this way. If it's, if they're lifting, they want to do it this way. If it's more toning, we're going to do it this way. So it was really fun. I would love to do it again on a not solo tour, because that solo tour, we did it in a Sprinter where I was driving most of the time. And then we had a second VIP that was like coffee VIP. And I was also like co-TMing, like running the tour with Sergio and Gino. And so it was a lot of like, I would like wake up, eat, Planet Fitness for 2 hours, training these people, go immediately to sound check, try to get in another meal, do another VIP for coffee, go and try to get a snack, warm up, play the set, and then it's on to the next one. And this was all West Coast. So every night was a drive. Every night was like a, 6 to 8 to 10 hour drive. So that one was, and it was all no days off. So it was like very exhausting for that week run. If I had to do that for a whole month, holy fuck. Yeah, it would have been really rough. But I would love to do that fitness program again on like an Eidola tour, or something where I've got a little bit more financial wiggle room and a little bit more time. Would be really, really cool. Just people that were handling other things would help me a ton. So
I know we have like a couple more questions. I know you're running short of time, so
all good, baby. Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to ask. I asked you this the last time we had this interview, and I asked Kurt Travis recently when he was on his interview. It's for a dear friend. They just want to hear you sing the name John Travolta real quick. And I don't know if you recall.
Wait, didn't I? I thought I sang it last time. Did I not? Did I not sing it?
You did. But
Dude.
they are such a fan. They are such a fan of this name, and they made sure to comment. That's all they requested. That was their comment, was basically they needed a sequel.
God, dude. Yeah, it's not like I've been singing for 8 hours a day for 6 days in a row. Oh, God.
I don't make the requests. I'm sorry.
You just enforce them. Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. We'll do John Travolta. That's all I can get out right now, dude.
The world is a better place now, and I appreciate you.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah, so we're gonna hit you with a couple more quick questions, and then obviously you got to run. Martin Paul wants to know if there's any plans on a UK headline tour.
Man, I fucking wish. I love Europe. I'm a big fan. I love touring the UK. I love touring Germany. I love Amsterdam. It's like pretty much my favorite city in the world. Um, I would love to go back. It really comes down to funding, is what it really comes down to. It, every pre-order, every stream, every purchase goes towards us having the monetary flexibility to do a tour like that, because it does cost a lot of money. It costs a lot to, not just for flights, but gear rentals and things like that. It's pretty substantial cost, especially as a headline band. And I mean, even for dance, God, we didn't make any money touring Europe for many years. I mean, even when I first joined up, it was rough. And it wasn't until recently where it was like financially worthwhile to the ticket sales would, really make sense. If we can find like a really cool band to co-headline with or support with out there, that's really, direct support where we get a bit longer of a set, maybe 45 minutes, or a co-headline where we get, the full hour. That's really what we're going to try to gun for, because I would love to bring it back out there. I know we have a lot of requests for Australia as well for Eidola, and I would really love to make that happen as well. So, if Eviscerate does really well, keep sharing the music and keep spreading the word. It's very possible we can make that happen.
Cool, man. Connor Cook wants to know if there's any plans on recording or releasing any of the solo tour content that you put out, some of the covers, and if there's any plans for solo music in the future.
Yes and yes. So we had originally had a plan of getting live mixes from the board from the solo tour, and then putting that out. That unfortunately didn't pan out the way that we had hoped. It was another hard drive corrupt issue, so we couldn't get those. So what we're gonna do is Ian and I, when I have some time off March and April, I'm moving back to Utah, and setting up my home studio. We're gonna record that set list. We're gonna record the set, and the original idea was to put it out for charity. We were going to put it out where the majority of the proceeds would go to a suicide awareness charity, suicide prevention charity. And that's still the plan. So we're going to record, versions of that. It also allows us to release the covers without getting pegged for licensing, because we're not profiting from them. They're all going to charity. So it's that's kind of how we can put the music out and put it to a good cause. And then as far as solo music, yeah, in the same breath, I have plans to do probably 4 or 5 songs solo wise, and they'll be very exploratory, and they'll be independently released. So it'll be very much like, pay what you can, Bandcamp style, old school throwback, no label funding or anything, just me getting them done, self-produced, self-recorded with my friend Ian, engineering, and we'll just put them out and be very exploratory. I want to lean into some of my electronic influences, do some hyper pop stuff, even leaning into some country stuff and some alternative Americana stuff, and just see what we can come up with. I love how Bill Murray does that. I love how Johnny explores those genres, and I'd really like an opportunity to do that in a solo context without any history. It's like not thinking about Eidola or Dance Gavin Dance, just like what I can do. So.
Hell yeah, that sounds dope, dude. And just based on like, if nobody's seen Andrew Wells do his thing solo live, which is Andrew Michael Wells, but it's a good experience. And Andrew it's not just Idola and DGD songs. It's like he pulls deep into the basket of covers.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, that basket runs deep.
It's good
cool
stuff.
hearing yeah.
I think a lot of people want to know, what's your favorite Eidola song and what's your least favorite Eidola song?
Ooh, man, that's a tough one. I would say, man, favorite and least favorite. God, it's really, really tough. Favorite is like every new record has like my new favorite. On Eviscerate, it was Golgotha, Fifth Temple. The closer of that record, I think, is like really fucking strong as a song. It really pays homage to Degeneratera and Third Temple, and like really ties up a lot of loose ends sonically and lyrically that I really like. And on Mend, from like just a catchy, poppy, like fun standpoint, there's a song called Prodigy that I think is really fucking cool. I think it's a great song. It's probably one of my favorites. But then like holistically, the Godhead Final Temple is like really shaping up. I haven't finished all the vocals on it yet, but when I do, it's gonna be sick. I'm really excited. And the guitar riffing is just crazy. Maybe the Faustian Spirit, I don't know. The Faustian Spirit has like some insane guitar stuff on it that I'm just like really stoked to lay that one down. So if the vocals pan out, that might be my new favorite. If everything's produced the way I want. So yeah, we'll see. As far as least favorite, I don't really have like least favorite songs to play. We had a song called Old War back in the day that my mom fucking loves. To me, it's just like a super boring fucking. It's like I was 18. It's like I just learned how to play a blues scale. It's like fucking some dumbass shit. My mom loves that song. She's like, why don't you play more of that stuff? I love my mom. She's a sweetheart, but I just think that song, it's rough. You think back on it, I'm like, oh man, this is definitely a little kid writing this shit.
It's mention that one because I came across that not that long ago on YouTube, and I was like, this is definitely different to hearing from Eidola, but it's still really cool as far as like blues part goes.
It's cool, yeah. It's actually like a unique take on blues. It is still cool, but I would say it's in the low tier for me. As far as like released material goes, there's definitely some stuff on the Great Glass Elephant I'm kind of mixed on. As far as like playing it now, stuff that I just think could be updated in terms of structures. Yarze Homily goes on a little long for my blood, in the midsection. Some edits that could be made that I think would just improve the overall songwriting experience. But everything else is really cool. I'm honestly, I get impressed by songs I haven't listened to in a long time. Like I went back to Speak to Listen not that long ago. I listened to like Currents, and I was like, oh shit, this song fucking rips. I forgot that this song rips. So it's cool. It's cool to go back to like some of those tracks and be like, oh, these are like actually fucking slappers.
Hell yeah. I have a question. It's just totally random question. This is not premeditated at all. Do you get compared to Wolverine from X-Men or Billy Butcher from The Boys more often?
Oh man. I would say I get the Logan comparison probably more. Yeah, I get the Logan comparison quite a bit, which I don't mind. I'll take it. I do get that Boys comparison once in a while. And then I do, if people that are into bodybuilding, it's funny because I see some comments, somebody will send me comments that are like, Chris Bumstead, which is like if I looked like Chris Bumstead, I wouldn't even be playing music, dude. That guy is like Herculean levels of fitness. But it's very flattering. I'll take it.
Any compliment's a good compliment, my book.
100%. Cool. Well, I'm down for, you want to do like two more and then I can call it.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. I was getting ready to wrap it up because I figured you had to run, but yeah, we can hit you with two more. So let's see. I'm not sure if you are particularly into Thrice, but Nico Siberia, sorry about that, Nico, slaughtering your name there, buddy, wants to know what's your favorite Thrice record, and also wants to know what Sergio's role and involvement was on this upcoming album.
So I love Thrice, big fan of Thrice. I think, controversial opinion, I actually think Beggars is probably my favorite Thrice record.
It's so good.
Yeah, I love Vihisu. It's like that was an album from my childhood that I fucking love. Artist in the Ambulance obviously is like a really cool, first post-hardcore experience for me. And then the Alchemy Index has moments that are just really impressive. And it was such an ambitious project that I get a lot of conceptual ideas from it, and it's always been really good. But Beggars to me was like such a return to form in such a raw way that they took a lot of risks, and they didn't hard tune all the vocals. They, not all the guitars are perfectly tuned up. I think it was like Tepe's like first foray into producing the band. And I think there's a lot of raw emotion to it. I think Dustin's voice sounds really cool. The weight, there's so many fucking cool songs on that record that are really, really cool, that resonate with me a lot. And then the second part of that question is Sergio's involvement is pretty much the same as it's always been. Sergio is and Sergio will tell you this, he said it in multiple interviews too. It's generally like, I will write and compose the breadth of the material, and then I'll leave majority of the the guitar parts, the second guitar, some of the lead stuff, some of the rhythm stuff, I'll leave him with a canvas to paint over. So I'll leave him with an entire section of material to write with. And essentially what that'll do is like, he'll get the demos, he'll get the production, and then he'll go in and he'll write over it. And the architect was kind of 50-50. It's like he had some pre-written stuff, and then he came in and just kind of improv, where it was like he'd work on it the night before, and then he recorded the next day. And in Eviscerate, it was a little bit more premeditated. He had some sections that were premeditated. He screamed on one section in a song called The Way to Sin. But yeah, same thing guitar wise, he would just take, sections and take them apart and do his own thing and add his flair to it, which I always appreciate. He always has a different perspective on things, and some of his riff writing, and it turned out really, really cool. And then Mend, I will say, he's taken on some of the bass duties, which has been awesome. That's a first. So he's taken on some of the bass writing and recording. He's doing some acoustic layering and stuff, some really cool shit. And then he's taken another step forward in he has a jam stick, which is like a MIDI, guitar controller to MIDI interfacing thing. And so he's going to take a jam stick to the whole record once we have the bounces, and just kind of see where he can plug and play some like really cool synthetic, synth leads and stuff like that. So yeah, it's coming together really great. I'm really excited with Mend. I think Mend to me is like, it's such an ambitious record that covers so much musical territory. And in my opinion, it's the best my voice has ever sounded on record. Like the layering that I'm getting out of it's just insane. So I'm really excited.
Man, I think we're all excited. So that's super cool to hear, man. Thank you for letting us in and giving some of your fans some much anticipated answers on a lot of different subjects here. And
yeah,
Brian,
thank you guys for having me, man. I appreciate it. Thanks to everybody who's listened to Eidola, who supported us and making music over the past decade. And we're really excited for this chapter. It's gonna be great.
I'm right there with you, man. I always appreciate you taking the time, Andrew. You're one of the most kindest, caring man. Like, dude, like your fans, like it rubs off on your fans, because you got a great fan base of just good people like Josh, Marcus, all these people that are just like, that care about the music and deciphering the meaning behind it all. And I guess that creates and instills a sense of just good people. So
That's what I'm
I'd
after,
say,
man. I love that. I love that it resonates, and that we can build a community of positivity and reinforcement. I think that's so important in today's world. And Sergio and I are like finding more creative ways to help build that community, and we're going to keep pushing it as much as possible to just like continue the positivity any way we can. So
I appreciate you for it, man. I don't have any more questions. I don't think Josh does. I know you're a very busy man, and we appreciate you here on Warp Taste Podcast taking the time. You're always welcome back. You got a couple more albums that need some album info, so maybe we'll get a couple thousand more memes and figure that all out.
You bet, dude. Keep them pushing.
All right, man. Andrew, thank you so much. I'm Ryan. Josh, you want to say anything? You want to say bye?
Yeah, man. Just again, thanks, Andrew. Always appreciate your input, man, and taking the time to do this with us. And I want to give a shout out to Temple Posting because they are awesome and they keep the support coming and they're very involved and basically just supporting Idola and your music. And thank you to them for being so positive all the time and keeping our community safe.
Yep, absolutely. You guys are fucking awesome. Thank you.
All right, Andrew, you have a good day, man.
Yeah, you guys too, man. We'll talk soon.
Hey,
Take
bud.
care of yourself. All right. Let me